My
Hey,
brother got a
about
silver
time you showed up. We've been
BMW
waiting.
with a red bow on Christmas morning.
Give her a break.
I got
Traffic is
$4
terrible
in
out
a
here.
white envelope, and before
Hey,
breakfast,
all right, get in the
my
car.
father handed me the insurance
You
bill
have
for
to
his
believe
car.
me. Just look at the
The
car.
BMW had a red bow big enough
I've
to
seen enough
embarrass
for one
Santa
night.
Claus. It sat in my parents' driveway
Fine,
on
don't
Christmas
listen.
morning. Polished
Take good
silver
care of it,
beneath
son.
a thin layer of Minnesota frost. Its headlights shining
I will, Dad.
like it already
Thank you so
knew
much.
it belonged to someone important.
We are so proud of
I
you.
pulled my old Honda in behind it and stared through the windshield.
Can't ruin this for
My
them.
hands still gripping the steering wheel. For one ridiculous second,
It's exactly
I
what
thought
we
maybe
feared.
a neighbor had parked there. Then my brother Brandon
He
burst
hid the
through the front
inheritance
door in
offshore.
socks and pajama pants, shouting, "No way.
Take it.
No freaking
It's everything you
way."
asked for.
My father followed him, laughing with the kind
I
of
don't want your
open
hush
pride
money.
I had spent 34 years trying to earn. My mother stood on the porch with both hands pressed to her chest, tears already glittering in her eyes. "Merry Christmas, son," Dad said, tossing Brandon the keys. Son. Not Brandon. Not kiddo. Son. The word landed harder than I expected. Brandon caught the keys and turned in a full circle like he had just won a game show. He was 31, unemployed for the third time in 2 years, and somehow still treated like the family's greatest investment. I sat in my car with 3 carefully wrapped gifts beside me, a leather wallet for Dad, a soft, cream scarf Mom had admired in a department store window, and the smartwatch Brandon had mentioned wanting at Thanksgiving while complaining that real estate clients respect success. He hadn't sold a house in 8 months. I had worked overtime for 6 weeks to buy that watch. Inside, the living room smelled like cinnamon rolls and artificial pine. The tree was covered in white lights, gold ribbons, and ornaments Brandon had broken as a child, but Mom still called memories. My gift was waiting under the lowest branch. A small white envelope. No box, no ribbon. Just my name written across the front in Mom's careful handwriting. Dad cleared his throat as Brandon kept jingling his BMW keys beside the fireplace. "Go ahead. Nora, open yours." I slid one finger under the flap. 4 $1 bills fell into my lap. For a moment, I thought there had to be more. Maybe a gift card. Maybe a note. Maybe some explanation that would make the heat crawling up my neck feel less humiliating. There was only a plastic keychain at the bottom of the envelope. "Families rock." Mom smiled gently. $4. "One for every person in this family you've always held together." Dad nodded like he had said something beautiful. "You've never been the flashy type anyway. You're practical." Brandon laughed, leaning against the mantel with his new keys in hand. "Don't worry. Nor, when your Honda finally gives up, I'll let you ride in style." I looked at the $4 in my palm. 4 thin bills. That was my Christmas. Not because they were broke. Not because times were hard. Because they had just parked my brother's luxury car outside with a red bow on it. I forced my mouth into something close to a smile. Then Dad reached beside his chair and pulled out another envelope. "Oh, before I forget," he said, placing it next to my plate. "The first insurance bill came for Brandon's car. You're better with paperwork. Honey, could you make sure it gets handled before the due date?" For years, I had managed my parents' online insurance account because Dad claimed he could never remember the password. I renewed policies, checked due dates, downloaded statements, and explained coverage terms he never bothered to read. That was how Brandon's brand new BMW had somehow become my paperwork before he had even driven it around the block. The room went quiet. Not shocked, quiet. Normal, quiet. As if this made perfect sense. Brandon got the BMW. I got $4. And somehow, I was still expected to pay for the ride. I carried the insurance envelope upstairs like it was something radioactive. Nobody stopped me. That was the part that hurt in a strange, final way. Not one person said, "Nora, wait." Not one person looked embarrassed. My mother had already turned back toward Brandon, asking if the seats were heated. My father was telling him the BMW had real presence. Brandon was laughing, still jingling the keys like bells. I stepped into the upstairs bathroom, closed the door, and locked it. Only then did I let myself breathe. The mirror over the sink showed a woman in a burgundy sweater, hair pinned carefully, lipstick still intact. I looked composed, practical, dependable. Exactly the kind of daughter who could be handed $4 and a bill in the same breath without making a scene. That had always been my special talent. At 8 years old, I was told Brandon needed more attention because he was sensitive. When he cried over losing a board game, Mom held him until he calmed down. When I cried because he ripped the head off my favorite doll, Dad said, "Nora, you're older. Don't make this worse." At 12, Brandon got hockey camp because boys need an outlet. I got a library card and a speech about how lucky I was to enjoy quiet things. At 17, I graduated with honors. My parents clapped, took 3 pictures, and left early because Brandon had a baseball banquet that same night. He had spent most of the season on the bench, but Mom said he needed to feel supported. In college, I worked weekends at a grocery store and ate noodles from a microwave while Brandon changed majors twice and lived in an apartment my parents called an investment in his confidence. After college, the pattern simply put on adult clothes. When Brandon's rent was late, I covered it. When his truck needed repairs, I sent money. When Mom forgot the property tax deadline, I fixed it. When Dad needed help with refinancing paperwork, I drove 4 hours with my laptop and spent a Saturday sorting documents at their kitchen table. Every time I helped, they called me responsible. Every time I needed help, they called me dramatic. Downstairs, Brandon shouted, "Dad, come look at the screen in this thing." My father laughed like Christmas itself had just begun. I gripped the sink until my knuckles went pale. This wasn't about the BMW. It wasn't even about the $4. It was about realizing my family had never mistaken me for strong. They had trained me to be useful. That night, I lay awake in my childhood bedroom under a quilt my grandmother had made, listening to Brandon and Dad talk about taking the car out after breakfast. Mom's laughter drifted up the stairs, bright and easy. At 2:03 a.m., I sat up. I packed quietly. 3 sweaters, my laptop, the framed photo of Grandma from my dresser, the old silver bracelet she had left me because she said I was the only one who understood how to take care of delicate things. On my way downstairs, I passed the wall of family pictures. Brandon in hockey gear. Brandon in a cap and gown. Brandon beside a birthday cake shaped like a race car. There was one photo of me, from 8th grade, holding a spelling bee trophy. The insurance envelope sat on the kitchen counter where Dad had left it. It wasn't the first time. Over the past 3 years, I had covered Brandon's rent twice, paid one of his emergency bills, helped my parents fix their tax mistake, and never once heard any of them call it sacrifice. They called it Nora being Nora. That was the sentence my family used whenever they wanted my time, my money, my patience, or my silence. I got into my Honda, started the engine, and backed out slowly. By the time I reached the end of their street, I had blocked my mother, my father, and Brandon. For the first time all night, the silence felt like mine. The highway out of Minneapolis was nearly empty, just black pavement, drifting snow, and the low hum of my Honda trying its best to outrun a lifetime. For the first 30 miles, I kept both hands locked around the steering wheel and stared straight ahead. I did not cry. I did not scream. I did not rehearse some perfect speech they would never truly hear. I simply drove. My phone sat face down in the passenger seat, silent for the first time in years. Blocking them had felt almost childish when I tapped the buttons. Now it felt like closing a window during a storm. At 4:18 a.m., I pulled into a gas station outside Rochester. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as I filled the tank with hands stiff from cold. A younger man in a delivery uniform wished me Merry Christmas. I nodded because my voice did not feel trustworthy. Inside, I bought burnt coffee, a banana, and a pack of tissues I told myself I would not need. When I turned my phone back over, I saw the blocked message folder already filling. Mom, you scared us. Call me now. Dad, this is unacceptable behavior. Brandon, seriously, you left because of a joke. A joke? I almost laughed. Then another message appeared from Dad. Did you at least take the insurance bill? It's due next Friday. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. There it was. Not, are you safe? Not, we hurt you. Not even, where are you? Just the bill. I sat in the driver's seat with the coffee burning my palm through the paper cup and stared at that message until the words blurred. My thumb hovered over the screen. Some old, obedient part of me wanted to answer, to explain, to reassure, to make their panic smaller so I would not be punished for it later. Then Brandon sent a payment request. $426. BMW insurance. Temporary, under the note. He added a laughing emoji. Something inside me went still. I declined the request. No explanation, no apology. Just declined. By sunrise, I was somewhere in Wisconsin, exhausted enough that the road signs looked like they were floating. A diner appeared near the highway, its windows glowing yellow against the gray morning. I pulled in because I needed coffee that had not come from a gas station and a bathroom where I could wash my face. The place was nearly empty. An older waitress with silver hair and red reading glasses came over before I had even opened the menu. "Rough Christmas," she asked. I looked down at my sweater, my swollen eyes, my untouched coffee. "Family," I said. She nodded like that explained everything. "Sometimes people call you strong," she said, filling my mug, "because it benefits them when you don't ask for anything." The sentence hit so cleanly, I had to look away. I ordered eggs and toast because she recommended them, then stepped outside to call Marcy, my college roommate, and the only person who had ever noticed what my family called normal. She answered on the second ring. "Nora." That was all she said. My throat broke around the truth. I think my family only loves me when I'm useful. There was a long silence. Then Marcy's voice softened. "Come to Chicago. I can't just show up on Christmas." "Yes, you can," she said. "You've spent your whole life showing up for people who handed you bills and called it love. Let somebody show up for you." I pressed the phone against my ear and watched snow gather along the edge of the parking lot. Behind me, the diner door opened, releasing warmth, coffee, and the smell of buttered toast. For the first time since I left, I let myself cry. Not loudly, not beautifully. Just enough to prove I was not made of stone after all. When I returned to the booth, my breakfast was waiting, and my phone buzzed again. Brandon had sent another request. "Come on. Nor, don't be petty." I deleted it. Then I picked up my fork and ate. Marcy opened her apartment door in Chicago wearing plaid pajamas, wool socks, and the expression of someone who had been angry on my behalf for years. She did not ask why I had come. She did not ask how long I was staying. She just pulled me into the hallway, wrapped both arms around me, and said, "You're safe here." That one sentence did what the $4, the BMW, and the insurance bill had not done. It broke me. For the first week, I slept on Marcy's pull-out couch under a blue quilt and woke up confused by the quiet. Nothing changed all at once. The first few weeks were not brave or beautiful. They were mostly paperwork, panic, and learning how to sleep without waiting for someone to need me. Some mornings, I woke up reaching for my phone before remembering there was no crisis waiting for me to solve. Peace, I discovered, could feel suspicious when chaos was the only home you had ever known. No one called my name from another room. No one asked me to check a bill, fix a password, calm Dad down, remind Mom of an appointment, or send Brandon a little money just until Friday. My body did not know what to do with peace. On the third morning, I opened my laptop and emailed my manager. I did not tell him the whole story. I only explained that I needed to relocate to Chicago for personal reasons and asked whether a transfer to the regional office might be possible. He called 2 hours later. "Nora, your work record is excellent," he said, "but I can't promise anything overnight." A familiar disappointment rose in me, but this time I did not collapse under it. "I understand," I said. "We can start with remote work for a month." He continued. "Then I'll talk to Chicago." It was not a miracle. It was something better. It was realistic. By the second week, I found a studio apartment in a brick building near the train. The floors creaked. The kitchen had exactly 3 cabinets. The bathroom sink dripped unless I turned the handle just right. But the lease had only my name on it. I bought a bed, a small table, 2 white mugs, and a lamp with a crooked shade from a thrift store. Marcy tried to give me extra dishes, extra blankets, extra everything. My first instinct was to refuse. Then I remembered the waitress in Wisconsin. Sometimes people call you strong because it benefits them when you don't ask for anything. So I accepted the blankets. Marcy also gave me a business card. Dr. Helen Ward. I read aloud. "Family counseling." "I'm not broken," I said quickly. "No," Marcy said. "But you've been carrying people who were never as helpless as they pretended to be." Doctor. Ward's office smelled like peppermint tea and old books. During our first session, I sat stiffly on a gray couch and explained the Christmas morning version of the story, trying to make it sound smaller than it was. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she asked, "What did the $4 mean to you?" I stared at my hands. "That I was useful," I said, "but not precious." The words stayed with me for days. That night, I opened a spreadsheet. At first, I meant only to list Brandon's BMW insurance request, just to remind myself not to pay it. Then I kept going. Brandon's rent, $2,400. His truck repair, $1,175. His temporary credit card emergency, $3,800. Mom and Dad's property tax shortage, $6,200. Flights home for crises. Brandon was too busy to attend $4,940. Birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, groceries, phone bills, cash transfers, with cheerful little notes like, "I'll pay you back next month. Promise." By midnight, the total sat at the bottom of the screen. $41,870. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the number. That was not generosity. That was a system. A few days later, Dad left a voicemail from a number I had not blocked. "If you don't return that Honda," he said, voice hard and official, "I'll report it stolen. The Honda. The car I bought myself. The car with my name on the title, my insurance, my payments, my cracked coffee cup in the holder." I played the message twice. Then I opened the drawer beside my bed, took out the title, and placed it in a folder. For the first time in my life, I was not preparing to rescue them. I was preparing to prove I had rescued myself. 3 months after Christmas, I learned that silence does not stop people from telling stories about you. It only gives them more room to invent. The first message came from my cousin, Rebecca. "Hey, Nora. Just checking in. Your mom said you've been having a really hard time. I hope you're getting help." I sat at my little kitchen table in Chicago, coffee cooling beside my laptop, and read the words 3 times. Getting help. Not healing. Not rebuilding. Not working. Getting help. The next message came from Aunt Susan. "Your father says you took the Honda and disappeared. I know things are tense, but stealing from family isn't the answer." I laughed once, sharp and humorless. The Honda was in my name. I had bought it used, paid it off early, and replaced the transmission with money from a year-end bonus my parents had never asked about. But facts had never been the language my family spoke best. By the end of the week, I understood the full version of the story they were spreading. I had suffered some kind of breakdown. I had run away in the middle of the night for no reason. I had stolen my car from my parents. I was jealous of Brandon's success. That last part almost made me admire the creativity. Brandon, who had not sold a house in 8 months, had started posting photos of the BMW from flattering angles. In one picture, he leaned against the hood in sunglasses, one hand in his pocket, red bow still visible in the background. The caption read, "Blessed to have family who believes in me. Big things coming." I stared at it for a long time. Big things had already come. They had just come from everyone else's wallet. My first instinct was to expose everything. I wanted to post the screenshots, the payment requests, the insurance bill, the voicemail where Dad threatened to report my car stolen. I wanted to lay the truth on the internet like broken glass and let them walk across it. "Doctor." Ward stopped me with one question. "What outcome do you actually want?" I sat in her office, hands folded tightly in my lap. "I want them to stop lying." "That's fair," she said. "But do you want revenge, or do you want freedom?" I hated how long it took me to answer. Freedom, I realized, required discipline. So I did not post. I answered relatives with one sentence: "I'm safe. I'm working in Chicago. And the Honda is legally mine." No explanations. No begging to be believed. No emotional essays written for people who had ignored the first 34 years of evidence. Then Rebecca invited me to her parents' 40th anniversary dinner in Minneapolis. At first, I almost deleted the invitation. But Rebecca added a private note at the bottom. "I know there's more going on than what people are saying. Come if you want to. Stay wherever feels safe." Safe. That word had become a compass. I called Marcy that night. "You think it's a trap?" I asked. "I think your family could turn a grocery list into a trap," she said. "But I also think you're not the same woman who left that house." She was right. I booked a hotel 10 minutes from the restaurant. Not my parents' house. Not the old bedroom. Not the place where $4 and an insurance bill had been handed to me like a family tradition. Then I opened the folder beside my desk. Inside were bank transfers, screenshots, the Honda title, Brandon's payment requests, and a one-page summary I had titled, "What I Paid for While Being Called Ungrateful." At the bottom sat the total, $41,870. The number no longer made me feel foolish. It made me feel awake. On Friday morning, I packed one black dress, one pair of heels, and the folder. Before leaving for the airport, I looked at the four $1 bills I had framed above my desk. $4. One for every person I had held together. This time, I was going back for myself. The restaurant was one of those old Minneapolis places with dark wood walls, white tablecloths, and waiters who moved like they had been trained not to hear family secrets. I arrived 10 minutes early. That alone would have shocked the old version of me. Old Nora would have arrived 30 minutes early, checked the reservation, helped place the flowers, made sure Mom had water without ice, and asked Dad if he needed me to look over the bill before dessert. This Nora walked in with one black folder under her arm and a hotel key in her purse. Rebecca saw me first. She crossed the lobby quickly and hugged me with both arms. "You came?" "I did." She pulled back and studied my face. "You look good." People had said that to me before as a polite reflex, but this time, I believed it. My dress was simple, my heels were steady. And for once, I had not dressed to disappear. Before I could answer, Dad appeared near the hallway to the private dining room. "Nora," he said. Not sweetheart, not honey, not even hello. Just my name, spoken like a summons. "Your mother wants a word before dinner." I looked past him, through the open doorway. Relatives were greeting each other, laughing, placing gifts on a side table. Brandon stood near the bar in a navy jacket, phone in hand, smiling too widely. Now I asked. Dad's jaw tightened. "It's important." Of course it was. Important had always meant something they wanted from me. He led me into a small side room with a fireplace that wasn't lit. Mom sat on a love seat, clutching a tissue. Brandon leaned against the windowsill. One ankle crossed over the other like this was a business meeting he had already won. Dad closed the door behind me. "We need to clear the air," Mom said, her voice trembling. I stayed standing. "All right." Dad pointed to the empty chair across from them. "Sit down." "No." "Thank you." His eyebrows lifted. He was not used to me refusing instructions in full sentences. Brandon gave a short laugh. "Wow. Chicago made you dramatic." I looked at him. Chicago made me rested. Mom pressed the tissue to her nose. "Nora, please. This has gone far enough. You left on Christmas like we were monsters. You handed me $4 and your son's insurance bill. It was a joke." Brandon said. "No," I replied. "A joke is when everyone laughs." Dad stepped forward. "You embarrassed this family. You ran off, blocked us, and let people think we had done something terrible." I almost smiled. "You told people I had a breakdown." Mom's eyes flickered. Dad said nothing. "You told Aunt Susan I stole my own car?" "That was a misunderstanding," he snapped. Brandon pushed away from the window. "Can we stop pretending this is about Christmas? You're mad because Mom and Dad helped me." I opened the folder slowly. "No, Brandon. I'm mad because they helped you and billed me for the cleanup." The room went very still. I placed the first page on the coffee table. What I paid for while being called ungrateful. Dad stared at the title. Mom looked away. Brandon's smile thinned. I began with the rent transfers, then the truck repair, then the credit card emergency, then mom and dad's tax shortage, then the flights, then the grocery deliveries, then the phone bills Brandon had promised were just temporary. My voice stayed calm. That surprised me most of all. At the bottom, I said, tapping the page, is the total. Brandon leaned forward. Dad read it first. $41,870. Mom whispered, that can't be right. It is right. I said, every transfer has a date. Every message has a screenshot. Every promise to pay me back is in that folder. Dad's face darkened. So what is this A bill? No, I said. It's a mirror. Brandon scoffed. You always had to act like the victim. I turned to him. You got a BMW with a red bow. I got $4 and your insurance payment request before sunrise. He opened his mouth, then closed it. For the first time in my life, my brother had no easy joke ready. Dad rubbed his forehead. The insurance went up after the accident. That's why we wanted to talk tonight. There it was. The real reason. Mom reached toward me. Just temporarily. Nora, your brother is under so much pressure. I looked at her hand until she pulled it back. So, you gave him the car, I said. But you came to me for the consequences. No one answered. I closed the folder. I will not send another emergency transfer. I will not pay another bill in someone else's name. I will not be called selfish for refusing to fund a life I was never allowed to enjoy. Mom began to cry. This time, maybe some of it was real. Dad's voice dropped. Family helps family. I nodded. Then start helping me by telling the truth. I picked up the folder and walked to the door. Behind me, Brandon said quietly, Nora. I stopped, but did not turn around. What am I supposed to do now? For 34 years, that question would have become my assignment. This time, it stayed his. I don't know. I said, but I'm sure you'll learn faster if I stop doing it for you. Then I opened the door and stepped back into the sound of dinner, laughter, and people who had no idea the family employee had just resigned. For 2 weeks after Rebecca's anniversary dinner, nobody in my family called me. Not from their real numbers. Not from borrowed phones. Not through relatives pretending to just check in. The silence felt different from the silence after Christmas. Back then, silence had been something I stole in panic. Something I protected by blocking numbers while my hands shook. This time, silence arrived on its own. Like a room finally cleared of smoke. I did not mistake it for peace. I knew my family. Quiet usually meant they were deciding which version of the truth would cost them the least. Rebecca called me on a Tuesday evening while I was making soup in my Chicago apartment. I thought you should know, she said carefully. People are asking questions now. I lowered the heat on the stove. About what? About everything. Your dad told Uncle Mark you were exaggerating, but Brandon got loud at the bar after dinner and said something about you keeping receipts like a psycho. I closed my eyes. That sounded like Brandon. And Aunt Susan asked why he needed your money if the BMW was such a great gift. Rebecca continued. He didn't answer. For the first time, the family story had a crack in it. Not because I had shouted, not because I had exposed them online, because I had laid down facts in a room where excuses had always lived comfortably. A month later, I heard what happened to the BMW. Brandon did not lose it in some dramatic movie scene. No tow truck arrived at midnight. No neighbor filmed it from behind curtains. Reality was quieter and more humiliating. The insurance doubled after the accident. The repair estimate was higher than Brandon expected. Dad refused to cover all of it because his retirement account had taken a hit. Mom cried. Brandon accused everyone of abandoning him. Then he sold the BMW at a loss. He replaced it with a used Ford sedan the color of wet cement. Marcy said that sounded like character development. I said it sounded like math. Still, I did not feel the rush of satisfaction I had imagined. There was no fireworks display inside my chest, no choir singing because the golden sun had finally met a bill with his own name on it. I only felt tired. Doctor Ward helped me name it. You're grieving the family you kept trying to create, she said. I thought I'd feel stronger. You're stronger, she replied. Strong doesn't always feel like victory. Sometimes it feels like not going back. That became my private definition of progress. Mom's voicemails began again in spring. The first few were familiar. Your father is so stressed. Brandon doesn't know who to turn to. I hope you understand how hard this has been on all of us. I listened once, then deleted them. But one message came on a rainy Thursday night while I was sorting laundry. Mom's voice sounded smaller. Nora, she said, I don't think I ever learned how to love you without leaning on you. I stood beside the washing machine with a towel in my hands and forgot how to move. She did not apologize fully. She did not list what she had done. She did not mention the $4, the insurance bill, or the years I spent becoming convenient. But for the first time, she did not call me selfish. I saved the voicemail. Not as forgiveness. As evidence that truth could reach people slowly, even people who had spent years avoiding it. Brandon texted 3 days later, Can you send me that budget spreadsheet? I stared at the message for a long time, waiting for the trap. Then another bubble appeared, not asking for money, just the spreadsheet. I sent him a blank template, no notes, no rescue plan, no I'm proud of you, no call me if you need anything, just the file. He replied, Thanks. One word. Maybe the first adult word he had ever sent me. By summer, my own life had grown in small, steady ways. My transfer to the Chicago office became permanent. I had a real desk, a real badge, and co-workers who knew me as Nora, not Brandon's sister, not Linda's reliable daughter, not Richard's emergency contact. Just Nora. One Saturday morning, I took the 4 $1 bills out of my desk drawer. The paper had softened at the creases from the night I folded them and carried them out of my parents' house. I had kept them through the drive, through Marcy's couch, through the first therapy session, through the apartment lease, and through every moment I almost convinced myself I had overreacted. Now I knew why. Now I knew. I bought a simple black frame and placed the bills inside, under them, on a small white card. I wrote the day I stopped paying to belong. I hung it above my desk, not where guests would notice immediately, but where I would see it every morning before opening my laptop. A reminder, not of what they gave me, of what I finally gave back. The bill. 1 year later, I hosted Christmas Eve in a Chicago apartment that had never heard my father's voice echo down a hallway. That alone felt like a blessing. Snow pressed softly against the windows. The radiator hissed beside the couch. My small tree stood in the corner, uneven and over-decorated because Marcy believed ornaments should not match. They should have emotional range. There were 6 of us around my table. Marcy brought sweet potatoes. My co-worker Tessa brought rolls from a bakery she swore had changed her life. Two neighbors from upstairs brought wine and a board game. Doctor. Ward would have called it a chosen family, but I simply called it peaceful. No one asked me to check a bill. No one handed me an envelope. No one praised me for being strong while quietly expecting me to carry the room. After dinner, Marcy raised her glass. "To Nora," she said, smiling across the candlelight, who finally learned that being reliable doesn't mean being available for everything. I looked down quickly, embarrassed by the warmth rising in my face. A year ago, praise would have made me uncomfortable because I assumed it always came with a job attached. Compliments in my family were invoices with prettier wording. "You're so responsible. You're so practical. You're the only one we can count on." Translation: here is another thing that should not be yours, but will be now. When my friends thanked me, they helped clear the table afterward. That still felt miraculous. My phone buzzed while I was stacking plates in the sink. For a moment, my body reacted before my mind did. Shoulders tight, breath held. Old fear knocking from inside my ribs. Then I saw Brandon's name. "Merry Christmas. Nora. Hope you're good." A second message followed, still using the budget sheet. It helps. I stared at the screen longer than I needed to. Brandon now drove a used Ford sedan and worked full-time for a property management company. Not glamorous, not impressive enough for my father to brag about at church, but steady. We were not close. We were not healed. But we were no longer playing the same old roles. And that mattered. I typed back, "Merry Christmas. Brandon. Glad it's helping." Nothing more. No offer. No rescue. No soft little doorway for him to walk through with a problem in his hands. A package from Mom had arrived that morning. I had waited until after dinner to open it because I no longer let my family set the emotional schedule of my day. Inside was a small ornament wrapped in yellowed tissue paper, a clay star with crooked edges, painted blue. My name scratched across the back in a child's uneven handwriting. I made it in 3rd grade. Every year. I had looked for it on our family tree. Every year. Mom said she must have misplaced it. There was a note under the tissue. "I found this in the attic." I should have put it on the tree. Dad had signed beneath her name. Just Dad. No apology. No long confession. No sudden transformation wrapped in Christmas paper. But for my father, even signing the card was a crack in the wall. I carried the ornament to my tree and hung it near the front, where the lights caught the chipped blue paint. Marcy watched from the kitchen doorway. "You okay?" I thought about the BMW with the red bow, the $4 in my palm, the insurance bill beside my plate, the highway at 2 a.m., the diner in Wisconsin, the first night on Marcy's couch, the spreadsheet, the family meeting, the used Ford, the saved voicemail. Then I looked at the black frame above my desk. 4 $1 bills sat behind the glass. Under them, the small white card still read, "The day I stopped paying to belong." "I'm okay," I said, and I meant it. Later, after everyone left, I washed the last mug and turned off the kitchen light. Snow was still falling outside, softening the city into something almost gentle. For 34 years, I thought love was something I had to earn by being useful, by answering every call, by fixing every mess, by needing less than everyone else. But silence is not strength. Being useful is not the same as being loved. And sometimes the first real gift you ever receive is the courage to leave before they can hand you another bill. My brother had needed a BMW to feel important. I had only needed a locked door, a quiet room, and the truth that I was done earning love from people who kept handing me receipts. I locked my apartment door, not because I was afraid, because this home was mine. Then I turned off my phone, sat beside my crooked Christmas tree, and let the quiet stay.